Welcome to Peaceful Prosperity with Oliver Manalese. It is a true honor for me to have our client spotlight today with the powerful Matt Williams. Matt is a husband, a father, a business owner, and Matt, I'm so excited to be with you today.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much for being willing to share your story, your experiences, the journey that you've gone through, because, man, you've been on quite the ride.
It's been, yeah, quite a year. It's been exciting and challenging and nerve-wracking all at the same time, but yeah, it's been fun.
Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, so we have some context on what your background is and what where you're at.
Sure. Well, as mentioned, my name is Matt Williams. I'm a proud husband to Alicia, father of three amazing kids, Riley, Haley, and Madison, and also a proud father to the best damn dog in the world. I'm president of my own.
Bruder.
Oh, that's right, Brooder. Yeah, he's a fantastic German Shepherd. He bucks all of the stereotypes in terms of big German Shepherds. He's the biggest suck in the world. um, I like to think that he's a lot like his owner in that he looks kind of intimidating sometimes, but he's just a big old suck, and he means very well, and he has a heart of gold. So, and I'm also president of my own successful contracting business. We're a farm drainage business, so we lay field tile for farmers to lower the water table and help improve crop yields.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. There's so much in there. You have life as a husband, as a father to three kids, as a fur dad,
Yep.
um, a local business owner, and a family business. There's I think there's so much to be said about kind of carrying the responsibility of all of those things. And I would love for you to share with us where were you at when we first met? What would you say was your circumstances, your mindset during that time? What motivated you to approach having a conversation together?
I think the easiest way to start would be just the simple word burnout, really. That's kind of what it came down to. Like you said, it was a family business, it is a family business. This is basically all I've ever known. So being put in the position that I was in at such a young age, it was exciting. I was full of energy and I thought this is great. I'm basically running the show at in my 20s still, not realizing that it was burning the candle at both ends, and it eventually is going to take its toll. And essentially, that's where we got to. I found I was constantly just people pleasing, creating bad habits that way, always putting myself last, not developing, my time or devoting my time rather to the right places, especially when it comes to family and myself and things like that. And yeah, that was just, like I said, burning the candle at both ends. It was taking its toll, and finally it got to a point where Alicia and I were both to a point where we said, this isn't going to last. We can't do this anymore." And that's when we were fortunate enough to have been given your contact information, and we reached out to you.
Oh man. Yeah, before we hit the record button on our conversation, we touched a little bit about that burnout, and I think that's something a lot of us can resonate with, especially as you going from entrepreneur in a budding business, getting everything going, and like that's your energy is on your side, so you just got to take as much action as possible. Then eventually it just turns into a very unsustainable practice. Like it doesn't work in the long run. Can you share a little bit about kind of what that process was like? When did you start to notice that started to transition, like, okay, this is actually not sustainable. I can't keep going this way. What were some of the symptoms? What were some of the signs that became present for you?
So our line of work is a seasonal line of work. We do work all year round for the most part, but it's obviously busier in the spring and fall because we're farming based. So I would say every year I noticed it a little bit, and every year it grew stronger and stronger in the winter season because we would go through the fall, which is obviously it's the harvest time for farmers, so they've got money to spend, and that's when we're in the field doing our thing, the highest production, and then all of a sudden winter slows right up. So then come springtime, it's like, oh geez, how are we going to top last year? How are we going to do what we just did? And it's just that extreme overwhelming feeling of, how are we going to top last year, which is this pressure that I was constantly putting on myself, because that's the way I was raised and that's the way it always was in this business. So that was the first, but like I said, every year I noticed it getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And it finally got to a point where we had such a successful year, and you would think that that would make life easier, but we found on the contrary, we just, didn't feel like we had any more to give. We felt like we were just totally tapped out.
Wow. Yeah. I think when you are going through a process like that, I know this is how I am on by default, unless if I'm really paying attention, then I can catch this. But I know a lot of male entrepreneurs keep this hidden, will not really tell anybody that they're going through challenges, that they had their most successful year, but behind the scenes are like completely wiped and wondering like what is going on. I'm everything on paper is looking so good, but I'm so drained right now.
Yeah.
um, did you have outlets, support system to be able to share that with people during that time? Or were there ways in which it started to kind of ripple out into your relationships, uh, your team, things like that?
Definitely. I think for the first, let's call it 5 to 8 years of running the business, I essentially did it on my own, in that I didn't want to reach out to my parents for help. I didn't want to put any of the pressure, the stress, or the burden on them, because that was creating conflict, especially between my father and myself, that I didn't want to feed that, fuel that feud. So essentially, I took a lot of things on myself and learned a lot of things the hard way. And then in terms of dealing with the stress and the pressures and whatnot, I tried my best not to bring it home, because I didn't want it to affect my family and be negative around my family, my home life, not realizing what it was doing to me inside. So then about 5 years ago, when my wife Alicia came on board full time with the business and really got involved with the decision making and doing the books and all of that, we saw a huge growth in the company, because we were working together on it and making it even more successful. And then I had a partner that I was bouncing ideas off, but because the fact that I was also bouncing the stress off, and she was feeling the weight of the business on her shoulders as well as me, it started affecting other areas. Then home life's not the same. People think it's great, you work together all day long, you get to spend time together, but that's not quality time together. That's different. You're work partners, you're not life partners when you're in that circumstance. So I think that's a lot of the reason that drove us to the changes that we came in the last year, because she was able to see it from an outside looking in and say, this isn't normal. This isn't right. The way things are affecting you and the family and everything, because she didn't grow up around this like I did. Me growing up around it, I just assumed that's the way it is. That's normal. But again, because we had that outside view, I was very blessed to have her step in and say we need to make some changes. And then we had some really good conversations, just like we always do, about not just business but life. And I think it's created a lot of longevity, not just in life but also in the business.
Matt, I acknowledge you for opening up and sharing just even that little bit of behind the scenes from the past decade or so of your journey, because it's, like I said, most of the time as entrepreneurs, it can feel lonely and it can feel like it's all on us. And to be able to share about it, my hope is that for you who's listening to this, find a way to have a conversation, to acknowledge it, to point at it, because I think that's one of the best ways for those worries and those stresses and those burdens to feel just a little bit lighter, and also to be able to transition to a mode of being more solution oriented.
Mhm.
And I think, to your point, this whole aspect of it being a family business, right? And you're a
Mhm.
family oriented guy, you're a father. There's so many ways that life can trickle into business and business can trickle out into our lives. It's not as simple as it sounds to try to compartmentalize it, and say, well, I'm just going to keep that in a little box. but energetically, emotionally, mentally, it can really take a toll. And it's so like so grateful that you both worked as a team. I think that, would you say that kind of created its own challenges, but as well as opportunities?
Absolutely. Yep. You have two different aspects looking at the same problem, and you also happen to be married to that person. So you go from tiptoeing around certain, topics and things like that to realizing, hey, best thing way is to just face it head on and solve it together. Because if you
Yeah,
let it fester and create issues, then that's a really bad road to go down.
yeah, yeah. What would you say were some of your most proud moments during the work together? What were some of your biggest breakthroughs, accomplishments when you look back at this whole process?
The biggest one, which you just touched on, it being a family business, just to expand on that, is the business was run from our home property where we lived. So the shops and the business were right outside of the house. So you've got that constant flow of traffic coming and going, whether that be customers, employees, or just the simple fact of us sitting in on the porch on a Sunday having a coffee and looking out and there's the equipment. Well, obviously my mind's going to drift straight to where's that truck going on Monday? Where's that truck going? Who's taking this? You just couldn't turn it off. So separation has been my most proud accomplishment through the last year. We sold the property, moved the business, bought a much more professional shop on the outskirts of town, moved our house into town so that we have that complete separation from home and work. I can leave work at work and go home. I can go back to work, not home to work. And it's just amazing how much that separation has made the difference for us. The next big thing that I'm really proud of and currently working on in the business is the fact that now I feel like I'm working on the business as opposed to in the business, and then working towards working above the business. And those are the biggest things that I'm excited about for the future. Before I caught myself working in the business too much. A lot of that is because I do love what I do, but not realizing it. And therefore, I would get tied up with doing what I felt like doing or what I wanted to do, as opposed to what I should be doing as the boss and as the president. So, those are the biggest things I would say that I would take away from the last year. Obviously, there's been a lot of little goals or little achievements too that I'm not stating, but it seemed like every week there was another aha moment when we were working together. But those are definitely the main two that I'm proud of.
You when you bring up, we had our business and our home on the same property, so we separated it. We sold it. We got a new property for the business, got a new home for ourselves. It sounds like it's really simple when you say it
Mm.
like that. When you look back, but a lot had to happen. This is, I mean, share just a little bit of background of, I think there's the duration of that property, the home and the business being there together. And like, there's a, that's really rooted, right? Like into your mindset and your day-to-day rhythm for decades. To be
Yep.
able to make that move, I feel like you got to be really called to a higher opportunity for yourself. And I think the pain teacher has to show up as well to be like, okay, that's okay. We need to be complete with this way of doing things and move in a new direction. Um,
Yeah, that was really, really hard. I put on a big front for a lot of that window and that time frame in terms of selling it because my parents bought that property when I was 3 months old. So that's how old I was when we moved there and they started the business. Um, in obviously growing up there with my brother, and then him not being around anymore, that created a lot of ties that I had to be okay with cutting those ties basically. And so yeah, that was very, very difficult. And also, we built a new house there. We built two new houses there. Actually, my parents were living in one of them, and then we built another one for ourselves. And being able and willing to walk away from all of that, knowing that it was the best thing for us, for our family, and for the business, that was difficult. And that was a huge, huge leap that we took. But I had faith that it was the right decision. And Alicia and I spent a lot of time talking about it and making sure, is this what we want? And I can honestly say that we felt at the time, yes, this is what needs to happen. And looking back, it's 100% the correct decision. So yeah, we're proud of what we've done because it was such a hard, hard step to take. But no looking back.
Man, I am so damn proud of you. The amount of work that you put into letting it go, with so much history behind it, and you just coming into yourself, really, kind of recognizing what it is that you want for yourself, for your family, for your future, and moving towards that. It takes a lot of courage, and it takes a lot of bold moves that you made, and I think it's worth acknowledging. So I celebrate you in that, brother.
Yeah, thank you. It's funny, Alicia and I, we brought it up a lot of different times about, history and tradition. And, we bucked a lot of trends with the changes that we've made in the last year with my family and my history and so on. And one of the favorite quotes that we found over the last year that Alicia showed me and we really liked was that tradition is often just peer pressure put on by dead people. So when you think of it that way, it's a much different aspect as opposed to letting people down, right? So yeah, it was interesting.
Well, it's amazing, right? Like if we look at our ancestors, they make these really bold moves. Like they leave a lot of stuff behind: history, a language, even a land, and they go somewhere completely foreign, someplace completely new, because there's a better opportunity for the future, for their family, for prosperity. And when we look at it for our own selves, it's not easy to connect that. Oh wait, past generations in my family did similarly, and
Yes,
maybe it's time for me to do that now, right? Like
absolutely.
maybe honoring my ancestors and honoring my history means leaning into the fact that they
We
took a
talked a
leap
lot
to.
about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because it's interesting. Alicia and I went for a trip to Ireland this past spring, and we researched the history of our family. And it's amazing how the decisions you make are based on the current times. You don't make your decisions based on 10, 15, 20, 50, 100 years ago. You have to make it based on now because times are forever changing.
Mm. Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that you both made that journey and connected with your past as you were leaning into a new possibility of the future for you and your family. Um, what would you say about this whole idea about how personal growth impacts business growth? Because it's
I
something that I
think
find that it's a consistent theme where I work with clients and they have these business issues, but what really is going to unlock their business is if they grow themselves.
100%. That's one of the biggest things I've really taken away from all the personal growth is, well, a couple things. First thing I had to learn is that what I do is not who I am. That was a huge, huge breakthrough that we had at the very beginning. And then the next thing would have been quality of time put in is far more important than the amount of time put in. When you really put the effort into making your time efficient and looking after yourself first so that you accomplish more in less time, then you have more time for your self-care. You have more time for your family, for putting those more important aspects of your life first. And then it's amazing how it just snowballs. When the more you do for yourself, the more productive you are at work, so that you're not just burning the candle at both ends like we ran into.
So you started to take care of yourself, your
Yep.
business's number one asset, and all of
Yep.
a sudden you're performing at completely new levels.
Yep. It's amazing how much it was just a matter of me getting out of my own way. It was, what I often thought it was, oh, the customer expects this, or we always did things this way. And, when really it was all just me telling myself these things. It was nobody actually telling me that. It was just those thoughts in my head. So getting out of my own way and breaking those trends. And yeah, like you said, putting myself first.
Wow. No, I really like that because it requires this honesty with yourself. You're reflecting on what are the stories I'm telling myself? What are the things that are self-inflicted? Because we might see, yeah, my business is doing this, my clients and my this and my that. When you start to look at, okay, how much of this is my doing? Because all of a
Mhm.
sudden, when it's your doing, you can do something about it. You're like, oh,
Yep.
this was me doing it the whole time. I can undo it. Then all of
Yep.
a sudden now you have a choice. Now you're free. Now you can make the kind of moves that you've made.
Yep, 100%.
Any other aha moments that really stand out for you?
Um, Naps are the greatest thing in the world. It's amazing how before I felt like taking a nap was like you didn't want to tell anybody about it. You know, it was like you're sneaking away, and as long as nobody finds out, you just kind of do it here and there on a Sunday type thing. But now I brag to everybody. I brag to all my friends. I nap a lot of days. It's amazing how much more I accomplish in the afternoon if I'm not tired and groggy and just staring at a computer or just going through the motions. It's yeah, that's been my favorite thing out of this whole thing.
You're famous for them.
I love it. I can nap anywhere now.
You're so good at it. I'm like, how? Tell me how.
I don't want to jinx
um,
it.
yeah, yeah. What about? I mean, you have uh, shared a lot about the challenges. Is there any other ones through the process that you feel like stand out for you that you were able to overcome?
Yep. I think the biggest one is avoiding slipping into old habits and routines early on, especially. But even still, I catch myself, slipping into old routines of just going through the motions and working and looking for things to be doing just for the sake of doing something, as opposed to what should I be doing. Worrying about stresses that would bother me before we started working together, and not everything that I've learned and my mentality put towards those things. So yeah, just slipping into old habits, just really trying to avoid that. And it's getting easier with time, but we still have to work at it because it's easy to try and get back to that comfort zone of what we had before. Appreciating the past, but not spending too much time thinking about it. I think that's been the biggest mentality shift I've really had to accomplish, because it's best, obviously, to be present. You don't want to worry about the future too much. You got to think about the future, but likewise, you don't want to think about the past too much. Acknowledge it, but don't dwell on it and don't try to relive it. Because, like I said, that would have really drove me to the nut house if I did too much of that. And I think the biggest key to a lot of that I just mentioned has been meditation. I didn't meditate ever before. To me, meditation was if I was driving in one of our highway trucks at nighttime with all the lights on, and then noticing the lights bouncing off of the yellow dotted line. I found that meditative, right? Listening to the sound of the engine, things like that, not realizing that's kind of meditation. That's just being in the moment, being present, and appreciating where you are at that moment. But having gotten into meditation full time now has made me realize how important it is to just be present, enjoy where you're at the moment, and don't stress about the future or the past.
Man, you're talking about like your meditation, your habits, boundaries, self-care, honoring the past. Uh, what does this have to do with the your business? Would you say how has this impacted things for you at work?
Energy levels obviously is the biggest thing. Attitude, when you're not coming to work angry right before the day is even started, because you're just waiting for that next thing or that next person or that next problem to come along. You're in the right state of mind to begin the day. And again, that wouldn't have come along without putting myself first. Yeah, I think those are the biggest things, but also delegating more, giving my guys more responsibility, putting the trust and the faith in them that they will do a good job, because it's amazing how much that snowballs and that can create its own momentum. Because then all of a sudden they get excited about certain things because, hey, I was trusted to do this. I get to make the decision on this without feeling alone or like they're taking the burden on their own, because I'm still here. They still have people they can talk to in a lot of the ways that I didn't when I was coming through it. I was more willing to make the mistake on my own and learn from it than to reach out and ask for help, which looking back now, I realize that was a mistake. I should have relied on others more. And that's just the culture that we're trying to create around here now.
I
And
like
also
that.
creates more
You're
free
pardon?
and also creates more free time, which is also a huge bonus.
How much free time?
I'm probably working less than half as much now in terms of hours than what I was a year ago. Yeah.
Oh my god, I got goosebumps.
Yeah. That's been a huge, huge accomplishment, because the guilt I would put on myself before if I didn't feel like I put in enough hours work in a day. It was, yeah, just old habits.
So you're working. So this is what I hear. It's almost like the relationship goes from I'm not just delegating, which is one thing. I'm not just asking for help, which I think that's also a breakthrough, right? Like as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, trying to asking somebody to support you, that's another level. But then I think this next piece is you're empowering them. You're
Yep.
giving them the opportunity to grow and giving them responsibilities. And not only that, it comes back around and you freed half of your schedule.
Yep. It's amazing, and I think it's probably very common for most business owners, the control. Like you just have to have control over everything. And I didn't think I was that bad for it when I first started out, but now looking back, I realize, oh, I was complete control freak, just like I was taught, and just like most business owners most likely are, because you think that, all the equipment or the, stuff, the assets, they're yours. Well, no, they're not yours. They're the businesses. And the biggest thing was differentiating between home and work. And once we were able to do that, it allows you to look at the big picture and start working on the business as opposed to in the business, and
Mm.
allowing it to be successful as opposed to trying to force things. And yeah, a lot of those things it took a long time to figure out, but now that we're where we are, it's pretty refreshing.
Oh, this is so good. This is so good. Yeah, the business and home distinction and the business and self distinction. Like I
Yeah,
am not the business, and our home and our business are separate. And this is the business gets it done. It's the business's assets, and I think that that shift is it's so beautiful.
yeah.
Um, Tell us for the entrepreneur who's listening, for the dad with kids who's trying to do it all, who's maybe starting to get tapped out energetically, a little bit overwhelmed, maybe on the edge of burnout, maybe even just think of it like if you were going to be able to give advice to your past self from a year and a half ago, what advice would you give?
Um, I think the biggest thing with having a coach like yourself has been, helping get us to the next level. I know I didn't think at the time that we needed to grow anymore. Didn't need to do anything and achieve anymore. I just felt tapped out. But I thought that having you in our corner would help us kind of downshift and get to a easier pace. When in reality, it's helped us grow even more without working as hard. Because essentially, you helped me get out of my own way and find smoother paths. Right, work smarter, not harder, is one of the easiest sayings to put towards it. um, Most of the factors that were holding me back were literally just in my own head. So just having that different perspective and focusing on what's truly important in life, because it's not just about the business. That's the way the old habits were. It was about as long as the business was doing well, then everything else will fall into place. But not realizing, well, no, that's not true. Because if you don't have your health, if you don't have your family's love and respect, if you don't have all those aspects of life that are really important, then what's the point? And essentially, that's where we were, and now we have a really good grasp on that.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. It's so interesting that we have this mentality that if I want more family time, fulfillment, meaning, more peace, then it's going to look like slowing down, scaling back, going smaller.
Yep,
When actuality, what's happened is you've grown to new levels while freeing yourself and gaining those things.
exactly.
I
You're
love it.
unlocking doors that you wouldn't have tried to open before. That's the way it feels.
Oh man, it's it's such an honor to hear you share, and to go deeper and share behind the scenes of where you've been and what you've gone through along the way and the insights that you can share with us. Man, I'm freaking proud of you and I
Yeah,
celebrate you.
thank you.
Man, you're who you've become and who you're becoming is it's so damn exciting. I'm so stoked for it. Tell us a little bit about what to look out for from you, what you're excited about moving forward, how to find you.
Um, I'm actually really excited about handing over the business piece by piece. Now, we have a pretty good idea how that's going to look, but obviously things can change. I have an amazing staff that will give us a lot of opportunity and ideas as to how we want to see things go. But again, we're very fluid in how it's going to happen, and we're not in a rush as to how it needs to happen, which is great too. Because if you'd asked me a year ago, I'd be ready to hand the keys over the next day. I'll be honest with you, right? But now it's to a point where we thought going into this, or at least I thought going into this, that it was going to be an avenue to find happiness and hand things over and get out and go do something else. But after making all the changes, I'm realizing that it's created some more longevity because we've made it more sustainable. So it's great that we're not in a rush to do anything drastic. We're in a good spot to make informed, wise decisions now for our future. And I'm excited about that. And by doing that, handing pieces over, I'm still here. Things aren't changing. The business is still going to keep rolling as strong as it has, I hope. But it's going to allow me more time for more self growth, time with my family, and travel. Those were things that were out of the question before, unless it was just a day here and there, sneak in a vacation because it looks like there's a window coming up, that sort of thing, which was very typical in our line of work. And then also, I wanted to be more involved in being a mentor, not just to my staff and the ones who decide they're willing to buy in and take over, but also industry wide. If anybody's looking for help, I don't want it to feel like I'm a competitor. I want to be able to help people and help shape the future of the industry if I can, and especially our community. I love doing that sort of thing as well, and I feel like now I have the time and I'm creating the time for those sorts of things.
Oh man. And it is so in you. It is so in you to be a teacher, to be a mentor, to be a guide and be a leader. And it's all right there. The wisdom, the energy and the clarity that you have and your communication. Oh man, tell us about where we can follow along on your journey, where to find you if we want to get a hold of you.
So that's actually the funny part. I'm not actually on social media. I never have been. I feel like that's always been a key to my free
Your
time.
company is.
But the company is, yes. So if you want to follow the company, by all means, you can check us out on Facebook at Ron H. Williams Drainage. We're also on Instagram. And then you could probably follow my wife, Alicia Williams, as well. She does lots of really cool posts when it comes to the family and some of the business stuff as well. If you want to see what Berger's up to, he's usually the star on that.
Amazing. Matt, man, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here with me today and doing this client spotlight interview. It is such an honor to witness your growth and your journey. And man, I look forward to what's ahead of you.
It's been
Thank you
my
so
pleasure.
much.
Thank you for all of your help.
It's my honor. Bye for now.
Take care.